Huzzah and welcome to Beyond the Gates, an Ohio Renaissance Fair production. On this show, you will hear from all your favorite members of Streetcast, vendors, and stage shows. We will hear wonderful stories from years past and find out who are the people who make the fair as magical as it is. So please, join us and enjoy Beyond the Gates. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Gates, an Ohio Renaissance Fair podcast. It is I, your host, Lucas, and today I am joined by none other than Megan. Megan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Lucas. How are you doing today?
Great, great. Uh, when I first came up with the idea for the show, and I started asking around on cast and in the office as well of people I should have on the show, your name came up more than once.
Oh, that actually is very surprising.
Uh, the answers that I got was, "Oh, you should ask Megan because she has been a part of the show, part of cast for a long time and has kind of grown up with Fair." So, how many years have you been a part of cast?
So this is my fourth year on cast. I joined in 2021, right after the pandemic.
Okay, and how many years have you been associated with the Ohio Renaissance Fair?
So this year is my 26th year being associated with Ohio Renaissance Festival. I had to miss the pandemic year.
Understandable, understandable that the stories I've heard from that year as somebody who joined cast the year after that. So, oh no, 2 years after that. What am I talking about?
Yeah, I think you
Uh,
joined the year after I did.
yeah. It was 22. Uh, what roles have you had on cast? Because when I first started, I believe you were still a part of court.
Yes, so for my first years on cast, I was Lady Elizabeth Spencer, and I was part of the court. I went by Lady Lizzie at the time because she was an unmarried character. And on court, when you're not married as a woman, you get to have your first name as your title. And then last year and this year, I play Taffeta, Taffy, Thimble, the village seamstress.
How did you come up with that role? Because one of the many aspects of being on Village is you get to create your own character.
So it's very funny. I decided I wanted to go to Village my second year because I wanted something different. I wanted something new. I wanted kind of the jump directly from the higher like prim proper system of court and get a little bit more down and dirty with Village. Um, and I was trying to think of like what visual did I want to perceive? Because one of the things I like to do is I love costuming. And the idea that we did not have anybody in pink on court came to mind. And I made the joke one day that I was going to make a character who was completely pink, and her name was Taffy because it was like Laffy Taffy. Because when I think Laffy
Hmm.
Taffy, I think pink or yellow, and we already had a lot of yellow in Village. So I jokingly said I was going to make a character named Laffy Taffy, and she has since spurned from there.
That's great. I do see you from day to day on fair in your pink garb, of course, and uh that's a fun story to know about how you chose pink and the name.
Yeah, that well, so I came up with the nickname before I came up with the actual name because then I went, I want to be the village seamstress as I can because like I said, I love costuming.
Hmm.
So might as well make it a bit. And then I was looking at fabric choices for something completely unrelated one day, and I saw the word taffeta and I went, oh, that works. We'll just be taffeta thimble.
That's awesome. Uh, Along with being a part of Village, what other shows have you been a part of?
So I was in the Queen's Choice Choir my first 2 years, and I am now part of dance. I'm also in the chess match and have been in the chess match since I started as a cast member.
Could you explain a little bit about the chess match? I believe, I mean, I know Charlie has been a part of that, but I don't think we had a chance to really go into that much. If I don't think we even touched it at all. Could you explain a little bit about what the chess match is?
Yeah, so once a day at 2 o'clock, we all go out and run a human combat chess match where the people who are fighting are actually the chess pieces. And it's all stage combat, so we've choreographed the fights ahead of time, and then we go out and do our best fight that we've got going. They change up the rotation a lot, so it's not always the same fighters, which makes it really interesting to go and watch because you're always getting a different show every time you're watching.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You are 26 years old, correct?
Yes, I am 26 years old.
So being 26 and the fact that you have been associated with the fair for 26 years,
Mhm.
how did you get involved, I guess, at such a young age? And how did you, I guess, make the transition from that to cast?
So my parents, when I was born, had already owned a shop at the festival called Amber Sense. The shop no longer exists. They've since switched to a different shop. They are still at the festival. My parents owned the Goblin Trader, which is the like leather journal seller on site.
Hmm.
Um, but we owned a shop called Amber Sense, and so my quote unquote first festival, I was 4 months old, I want to say. 4 or 5 months old, somewhere around there, and I was a baby in a basket on the counter. Um, and so you can imagine you're looking at a shop and there's just a baby in a basket there with a woman there trying to sell you perfume. um, because it was an oil shop that sold
hmm
perfume and incense sticks and such. And so I grew up with that shop. And then when I turned 18 and graduated from high school, my parents actually fully switched from Amber Sense to the Goblin Trader, and that shop was sold and it no longer exists at the festival.
So what was it like growing up with fair being a consistent part of your, I guess, childhood summers?
So we did two festivals when I was younger.
Oh.
We did the Great Lakes Medieval Fair, and then we also did, of course, ORF. Um, And so from July until October, every weekend was spent at a festival running around. Digital devices weren't really a big thing at that time. So most of my time was spent with my brother running around causing whatever chaos or mayhem we could get into without getting in trouble, basically. We were actually part of a group of kids who were called, so all kids at ORF tend to be referred to as Red Rats. Um,
hmm
they are the children of participants who are consistently at the festival. The children themselves are consistently at the festival. So my particular group of Ren Rats was also known as the Maze Rats because we spent most of our time causing chaos in the maze itself at ORF. Um, the people who were running the maze at the time were very gracious in allowing us to hang out at the maze because there wasn't a ton for children back in that time during the Peter Carroll years.
Do you have any stories from, I guess, fair throughout the time in the maybe those early days?
So my memory is always a bit wonky. I mean, we're talking when I was really little. Uh, my biggest memories tend to be of things like parade. I started walking
hmm
parade when I was 8 years old, carrying a banner, two banners actually, one on each hand. Uh, you make $5 a banner at the time. That's $10 a day, $20 a weekend. That's a lot of money for an 8 year old. Some of my favorite memories though were actually of going and watching the cast in the Pirate Stunt Show and in the chess match, or going down to the pub and watching Wenches a Whaling, or seeing any of the shows that were basically available to me.
Uh, was joining cast something that you were looking forward to? Kind of making that switch from, I guess, the booth life to being a part of cast?
So I did the booth life for a really long time, and in 2019 I decided that I wanted to try something different. The thing about being a boothie is you are stuck in that booth. It's a retail job. You know,
hmm
you're standing at a counter, you're selling product, you're talking to customers. You're doing a retail job. You're just talking with a fun accent and wearing different clothes than you would normally. And you're usually working longer hours. But I wanted to do something where I got out of the shop and I could wander around. And in 2021, I graduated from college in 2021, and I got a job where I was able to say, yes, I want to be able to spend my weekends doing something else. So I auditioned for cast that year and got in, and I don't want to leave. I will be on cast as long as my body allows me.
I understand that quite a bit. This is something that I envision myself doing for quite a long time. But until life has other plans for me, I think I'll be at ORF. What was your audition process like?
So I did the very traditional auditions. 2021, the audition days were back to back. So it was a Saturday and then a Sunday, and I auditioned on Saturday. I had my eyes on cast auditions in 2021 because pandemic year, I took off for everything going on. So I had my eyes and I was watching the Facebook page like a hawk, waiting for them to announce when the dates were. And as soon as they announced the dates, I checked, made sure my calendar was correct, and reserved that spot in my calendar so that I could come and audition. So our auditions actually took, I want to say I got out of there at like 1 or 2 p.m., but it was a lot of
Hmm.
improv games. There was a lot of seeing if you're willing to play, basically. Did we want to be out there to have fun, to make it fun for everybody around us, or was there another reason? Um, we had music auditions, and then we also had improv auditions. There was games that we were playing, and then there was the last thing was that monologue where you got to stand on that stage and say why you wanted to be on cast, what you were interested in doing, and then also kind of prove your ability to think on your feet right then and there.
That was very similar to the audition process that I had. I believe mine was only 1 day though,
So
and
it
it
was
was
only a 1 day audition. It's just instead
oh
of,
oh
because right
okay.
now they do auditions, the past few years they've done a Saturday audition and then like a weekend in between because of 4th of July weekend, and then
Mm,
another Saturday audition. And that year there was an audition day on Saturday and there's an audition day on Sunday, and you had to pick
gotcha,
one of the two.
gotcha. What is your favorite part of a fair day?
You know, I really, really enjoy opening gate, but my favorite part is the end of the day when we go and do closing gate. We do parting glass as cast and we say goodbye to everybody. And then it's an optional choice to go and sit at the bridge and sing health to the company. But I've made that choice since I found out about it my first year. I've made that choice every single day to go and sit and sing health to the company with everybody and say that final goodbye for the end of the day. Um, the reason I bring up opening gate is that chance that you get to see everybody for the first time that day,
Hmm.
and you jump right into character and start your day off hopefully with a good start. But closing gate is when you get to say, yes, the day is done. I had a wonderful day and I can't wait to do it again.
I had a feeling that you were going to say help to the company. And I say that as somebody who also does help to the company every day that I'm out there. It's I don't know. It for me it feels like a very magical part of the day. Like this is just like the we take a breath and we realize that hey, we just did this thing, and it's kind of especially that last line, uh,
Oh, you don't
but
have
you
to go home, but you
yes,
can't
that
stay
one.
here.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
And I'm just like, that's so true. Like it's oh, we've had a long day. We love that everybody came out and had a great time, but it's time for us to take a break and get recharged and ready to come back out for tomorrow. That's what that line
There's
means to me.
so many patrons who do not end their day once the festival day is done. They
Oh
they go
yes.
and party at Dublin Pub at 1573. They go and do something else, but I'll be honest, I don't do really much of the partying at the end of the day. Um, never have, to be honest.
Hmm.
There used to be, when I was younger, there used to be a case where the vendor coordinators would run like a vendor party once a year or something. But most of the time, once the day is done, the vendors pack it up. The ones who go home, and the ones who stay cook dinner and then go to sleep for the next day. And the same with cast a lot too. It's very much
Hmm.
a we're gonna eat food, have some chatting, and then go to bed.
Yeah. Um, my first year when I joined, I was like, because you hear stories about things, and you're like, oh well, it must be pretty wild, fun time at cast camp, and then you're like, oh well, oh everybody's in bed by 11 because this is an exhausting thing that we do.
Everybody's in bed by 11 because that's when quiet hours are, and we all got
Yeah,
to get up.
yeah.
I have to get up at 6:30 to get to fair because I go home each night.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't realize.
yeah, the thing is, I stay at cast camp for a while to chat, but I go home each night, see my cats, get to sleep in a real bed, sleep in AC, or in the
Hmm.
heat once it gets cold, and then I wake up at 6:30 because I have about a 40-minute drive to site. And because I'm in chess, I want to get there around 8:15, so I have time to get dressed and get ready before a fight call, which is at 9.
I didn't. I That's probably what it is. Just because you hang around after the day, then I'm just like, oh, Megan stays at the camp, but I
Yeah.
guess not. Um, since you have grown up with fair and have been a part of definitely, the fair life, the fair culture and experience, what has been the biggest change that you have seen throughout the years? I've kind of gotten a different answer from everybody that I've asked this to.
Yeah, so I guess for me, because when I was little, I was very stuck. We had a rule when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to cross a bridge. This was not an issue because the shop that my parents owned was directly across from the maze. So if you think about the festival's grounds, that means that the pirate stage is there, there's the joust list is there,
Mm-hmm.
the Alien Night pub, there's also the church, and there is, well, now there's the washing wenches, but that was not a stage when I was a kid.
Mm.
That stage, the washing wenches actually used to be directly across from front gate, and they moved them to up beside the church. But and then there was the, oh, what was it called? The wine garden. The wine garden stage that was right at the bridge. It was kind of bending the rules a little bit. I wasn't supposed to cross a bridge, but I could go to the wine garden stage and play in the little ravine that ran under the bridge.
That's yeah, the wine garden stage that would float away in the wash. That's
Yes,
what Hale said in
yes,
the last episode. Yes.
yes. Um, So the biggest thing for me that's changed is the stages and seeing the different things. Because like I said, the wenches used or the washing wenches used to not be up next to the church. They used to be down across from front gate. And there actually used to be a different stage there many, many, many years ago. There was a stage that they ended up tearing down, I want to say when I was like 11 or 12.
Hmm.
And then it was just an empty expanse of land for a while there. One year they brought in a bell player who had, I don't remember what they're called. They're like the gigantic bells that you might see like at a church or something.
Oh, okay.
But they brought like a someone had a like portable one, and they set him up over near the church there. But that stage area changed a lot. On top of that, the road that goes from like the maze down past the joust down to the Y Bridge didn't
Hmm.
exist when I was a kid. They put that road in after the new owners purchased the festival.
Oh.
So it used to be that there were no tents there. It was just a massive land that you could go and put out a blanket and chill on, run around in. And now they've got all these tents there. So there's a lot more vendors than there used to be at that time.
Uh and this is just a question I've had from somebody who's working in booths and then eventually joining cast. The crowds that have showed up to fair have has that been a huge change throughout the
So
years?
when I was younger, we could, on a rain day, you'd be lucky if you saw maybe 100 people.
Hmm.
On a rain day, I would walk around the festival and there would be a cast member jumping in a puddle, and I'd see maybe 12 patrons. Now, what was a busy day then is what we would consider a rain day now.
Oh,
Because a
okay.
busy day then was, enough patrons that you feel like opening weekend this year. Opening weekend was very hot, very humid. There wasn't a
Hmm.
ton of people, or was enough people that you felt like there were people, but it wasn't so many people that you're waiting in line for things. That's what a busy day felt like then. And that's now what I would consider a rain day. The crowds we get now were not a thing then. I think if we had had the crowds then that we have, or now, if we had the crowds we have now, then I would not have had as much freedom as a kid running around the festival.
Oh, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense and kind of really puts things into perspective on how much this has grown. I mean, I only went to fair twice before I joined cast. And so a lot of those like early stories are just like things that I hear kind of in passing. And
Hmm.
it's really great to hear stuff like that. When I suggested doing this podcast, uh I was really looking forward to hearing stories about like the earlier years of fair. Because that's not something that I had, and I've only been a part of like post, even as a patron, like post new ownership.
Hmm.
So hearing these stories about like the early years and the crowd sizes and how the fair used to be, as it's really just like everybody talks about the difference and how night and day it was, and this really puts it into perspective when you say stories like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the bulk of the years that the festival was running were what we consider the early years, the years before the
Hmm.
new owners. Um, So for me, those early years are they're my childhood. They're the memories I have. And looking at the festival now compared to the festival then, I can, it's almost like my childhood's different now. Like the nostalgia is different because I know that that's not something we're going to see again. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. When I look back at childhood, I think I loved my childhood,
Hmm.
but I'm glad that the changes that have happened because it's for the better for not just the festival, but for the vendors, for the cast members, for the entertainers, for the patrons. The requirements for booths have changed
Hmm.
since I was a kid. Brown Cow
Yes.
Leather. That shop set off a chain reaction of like shop expectations for vendors of what a shop should look like because before that shop, a lot of the shops were not, the regulations were a lot more lax because every year the shops are all owned by independent vendors. They are not owned by the festival, most of them. And so the vendors are also responsible for the upkeep of those shops. When Chip made Brown Cow, made that shop, he set the bar so high that all these other shops had to start basically setting their bars higher on what an upkeep of their shop is. And that's
Hmm.
changed the festival a lot too. And that was actually just before Peter sold the festival.
Along with doing the festival, are you a part of Yuletide at all?
So I don't do Yuletide. My job doesn't really allow for it quite as easily as it does festival. So
Hmm.
I come and visit Yuletide at least once, maybe multiple times. But I use November, December as kind of my downtime before the rest of my year gets a little bit busier.
Uh, so speaking of that, what do you do when you're not at fair?
Yeah, so I am a English language learner teacher for elementary students. So I work with students from kindergarten through fifth grade learning English. That is my full day job. So I work in a school building, teaching anywhere between 80 to 100 students
Oh
each
wow.
year.
I has there been any crossover between
No, not
no?
really. Not really. Well, like I said, I live about 40 minutes from the festival. So it is a bit of a drive for people from my area.
Gotcha.
Um, and on top of that, a lot of the families that I work with in my day job are our festival's gotten very diverse, as we
Hmm.
know, but it is still an event that costs money and it's still an event that has a paywall to it basically. And a lot of my families that I work with during my day job are not in the financial situation to be able to attend the festival. Um, through not even just buying tickets, but transportation to the festival, getting time off of work, being able to find someone to watch the younger kids that they can't take and such.
Hmm.
So the majority of the people that I run into are just my coworkers if I run into them at all.
Gotcha.
There's been a few coworkers who have said, "Hey, was at the Renaissance Festival, but I couldn't find you." And I went, "Well, that's not surprising considering how big the festival is now."
Out of the two roles that you have done, which role have you enjoyed more? I know court's a little bit more prim and proper and a little stuffy.
Well, so when I was on court, I tended to keep myself so busy. I didn't spend a ton of time with court. Um, and now that I'm in village, I have so much free time. I would have to say I really enjoy being in the village.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoy having the ability to kind of not necessarily get down and dirty. I don't like being muddy, but
Hmm.
I thoroughly enjoy being able to, if I want to sit on the ground to talk to a kid, I can sit on the ground and talk to the kid. I don't have to worry about the hoop skirts. I don't have to worry about getting the expensive fabric dirty that I can't do anything but dry clean only. All of my clothing, except for my bodice and my hat and of course the leather gear is machine washable. So I can throw it in the washing machine each week and be ready for the next week really easily. I could not do that when I was on court.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, that is something that I deal with.
Yes.
Uh my first couple of years garb, I was able to machine wash, and with my newer garb now, I've noticed that I've definitely taken things a little bit more carefully.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do not. I'm very hard on my clothes.
Hmm.
This is my second year as Taffy, so I think I can get one more year out of that bodice. But it's not that it's poorly made or anything. It's just when you're doing 19 days, plus there's also dress rehearsals and the rehearsals before that you're wearing parts of the garb to get more comfortable with it before the season starts. Um, things start to fall apart. It's not like a theater show where you're wearing it for 2 hours and then you hang it back up waiting for the next show to go on. Um, you're in that.
Hmm.
I put my garb on at 8:30 in the morning and I'm wearing it until 7:30, 8 p.m. That's almost 12 hours a day
Yeah.
for 19 days straight. So
What would you say to somebody who is considering auditioning for the Ren Fair?
it's going to be probably one of the most fun things you've done, but it will also be one of the most exhausting. Every year, I go out there thinking I am ready for whatever the year is going to throw at me. And every year I go, I am exhausted by the end of the first day of rehearsals. I am exhausted by the end of the first day of the season. Uh, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I know so many cast members who have agreed. So if you want to audition, go for it because you're going to have so much fun. Just be open-minded. Don't go in thinking I'm going to do exactly this. I'm going to do all of these things perfectly every single time. Go into it with an open mind. Be willing to try something that you might not have thought to try before, and have fun. My favorite thing to think about is for a lot of people, their first festival character, their first cast character is not, I don't want to say their best character, but definitely the one that they feel the most confident with. Because you're not sure what to expect until you get out there. They try and prepare us during rehearsals and during dress and everything, but you don't know what it's like to talk to a patron until you step onto those streets and talk to a patron.
Hmm.
Um, you don't know what it's like to go and sing in front of a bunch of people at pub sing until you step up there and you forget all of your words for that line that you had thought you had perfected, and you have to come up with something on the fly or laugh about the fact that you forgot and just take a step back. um it's it's a blast, but it's hard. And so your first character, you find all the flaws with your first character. It's kind of like anytime you try a new something new and you make your first I'm going to give a random example here. You make your first scarf. You knit your first scarf. You find all the flaws and then you go, "Oh, well now I know how to fix all those because I learned during that process of doing it. And now I'm going to do it again but better." And that's how I feel about cast characters is for a lot of people their first cast character is that first imperfect scarf. But by the end of that first season, they go, "Oh, I know all these things. I know what I want to do now." And now they have to wait for what, 8 months until they can do it all over again.
As we wind down here, this is my number one question in the episodes that I've done so far. What brings you back year after year?
The Ohio Renaissance Festival is more my home than some of my homes have been. I, as we've talked about, I've grown up there. I've been there almost every single year. We have to make exceptions for the pandemic year, of course. Um, and the people, the atmosphere, it's home to me. I literally the first day I step back onto those fairgrounds after the off season, I breathe in, I go, "It smells like fair. It smells like home." Every time I make that comment and someone inevitably goes, "What do you mean?" And I don't know how to explain it. I don't think I could ever leave the Ohio Renaissance Festival. It's it's as much a home as any other home that I've ever had.
No, that is a fantastic answer, and I really appreciate that answer. Your interview has definitely been I don't know. It's a brand new perspective that we've had on the show so far, and I mean I'm saying this as you being the fifth episode of course, but uh kind of getting into the vendor side of things and somebody who's grown up with fair and having all of that, and I think that was a fantastic answer for why you keep coming back year after year.
Thank you. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And with that, Megan, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, I'm sure I'll think of a million and one things as soon as we're done here. But uh, come to the Ohio Renaissance Festival. Come and have fun. Come talk to cast members. We want to talk to you. We're excited to meet you. Don't be scared of us, I promise.
No, that's great. Yes, as somebody who is on court, please come talk to us. Please, we're out here to have fun with you as much as you are to have fun. So we love that. Well, Megan, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the listeners out there. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And since this is officially the fifth episode, once this is published, I'll be able to submit this to Apple Podcasts. So we will be on Apple Podcasts soon. Uh, but in the meantime, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Huzzah!
Huzzah.